Lions and lionesses. I'm recording this audio to make sure there's no confusion with the BB3 Blueprint Holiday Edition, your best body blueprint. Now, simplicity is power. It is always my goal to make something as simple as possible, but yet effective. More information isn't always better. So the great challenge I have with creating these things is paring it down, just give you too much. And so this is what we're going to do, is give you the beginning of it, the foundation of it, and get you started. That's phase one. That's the first stage of this. And you'll understand why we change as we go through, because your body adapts to everything. I'll explain that in more detail a little later on here. But I wanted to tell you a story of really what people want and really what people need. And so there are two factors at play when it comes to transformation of your body or really anything. The first one is physiology. That's like resistance training, cardiovascular conditioning, your sleep, the food you eat. Like, that's the strategy. And that's very important. The other part is the psychology. That is the art of living it. And that's not always easy. But everything first begins in the mind. So I want to emphasize this, because if you're having challenges sticking to training, sticking to nutrition, or sticking to anything, changing any behavior, it's always coming back to your mind. Your psychology is the limitation. Everyone's psychology is a limitation that I've ever met. And so there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with me. This is part of being human. But I want to plant this seed going in so that you don't get frustrated. You don't beat yourself up for not being perfect. There's no such thing as eating perfectly. It's about giving your body enough of what it needs. And if you want to lose fat, you eat a little less food, and you make sure you do resistance training and you get enough protein to protect your muscle. That is the bare minimum, and that applies to every human. And so this first stage is the foundation. So we don't want to start getting in these little nitty-gritty details that don't matter that much. This first stage is what's going to produce 90% of the results. Make sense? Now, I used to make meal plans. I had a software, and this is going way back, and I would make these very detailed meal plans, everything on there, and it was a complete and utter failure. Not just for like regular people that have other jobs, but I mean even professional athletes, like super people that their livelihood depends on how their body performs. The reason for it is everyone wants a meal plan. It seems like everyone's always asking for a meal plan, and it's good to see samples and stuff. But what was happening is people didn't always have access to the food that was in that meal. It wasn't available, or they were traveling, they're doing things, and they didn't know what to do. And so there's three types of people, and everyone fits in this category in different areas of life. But when it comes to the body, this is super true. The first type group of people is most people in the world. Those are the dabblers. Those are people that do things so they feel good. And when you seek pleasure and avoid pain, you tend to jump around to things. You get excited about something. So now you switch this, you switch that. You can't keep bouncing around. You need to choose one path and stick to it. You can't mix and match things. It doesn't work. Trust me on this. So the dabblers of the world, that's not you guys. Obviously, if you're here, you're not a dabbler. You're going to be in one of the two other categories, which are far less. And so there's not that many people in the next categories. This next category is the committed achiever. The committed achiever will say, hey, give me a meal plan. Just tell me what to do and I'm going to go do it, because they value doing. They are always doing stuff. If things aren't going, if they aren't getting the result, they want to do more. Now they're doing 2 a day's workout. Now they're going to starve themselves. They're just going to fast because they had a bad day, right? Those are the doers of the world, and that's great. But life is different, produces different results, I should say. So where the dabblers focus on feeling, the committed achiever focuses on doing, on action. And we love that. We say things like all in or all out, and we'll push. And this is what Carl Jung would describe as the warrior archetype. And it's like, hey, we will go till we die, whatever it takes. And there's like a weird honor in that too, even though it's not healthy, and there's a more intelligent way. And that brings me to the next category. And I believe we're all in a stage of life, everyone needs to be a warrior. When we're younger, like the first 40 years of life, that's what we're doing. And then we hopefully evolve. Most people don't. They get stuck in the warrior because they've been rewarded, they've been successful. But the very thing that gets you to one stage doesn't get you to the next stage. It requires a different belief system, a different way of being. It requires you to expand your identity. And so that would be, this is the transformation of commitment to devotion. Devotion is just like commitment, except, get this, they're not just showing up. They're not just going to quit. They won't quit, but they're going to do it in a place of loving emotion, some sort of love-based emotion. And so they're focused on first being who they need to be to create what they want to create. So they decide in advance. They don't just jump into action. They do it intelligently. And so they ask different questions. The committed achiever says, just tell me what to do. I'll hammer this out. I'll knock it out. Let's go, right? And I used to be that way for most of my life, just so you know. So everything that you could be doing wrong, I have already done it wrong and far worse. I can promise you that. So that the committed achiever is like, just tell me what to do. What do I need to do? Give me the meal plan. Let's go. And then they just hammer it out. And then they will go until either they get the result or they crash and burn. And they often crash and burn because they don't think ahead. They don't understand the mechanisms of what's happening. They just do more. They just force. What we want is a state of power, of flow. And so you want to go from commitment to devotion. And Carl Jung archetypes, that would be the shift from the warrior to the magician or the sorcerer. And the questions that a magician would ask are far more powerful. So, like this: how can I get twice the result in half the amount of time and have a great time doing it? That's a powerful question. That gives you a different result and a different journey, where the committed achiever is focused on the outcome. I just need to get this place. And then when we achieve it, what do? Well, we just pick another one. We say, I made $1 million. It's like, oh, I'm going to make $10 million now. And we don't really enjoy a lot of life. We suffer. And a lot of times the committed achiever, almost all the time, is that in order to be worthy of life's rewards, we have to suffer. We're not worthy the way we are, so we have to do it the hard way. The devoted and humble student of self-mastery is being love, being their true self. They are living as the lion, the lioness. That's what that means. Living in love-based emotional states. That's your true nature. And those states are creative. They're generative, which means they generate energy, not just for you, but for the people around you. We've all been around people where the committed achiever has both. Sometimes they're like, yeah, and they lift everyone up. Other times they crash and burn. We get a little kind of moody when we're pushing the limits like that. But we don't need to push the limits like that, because we can create energy by being in states of love-based emotion. So when it comes to nutrition, what are they going to do? The devoted, humble student self-mastery eats in the state of grateful presence. That improves digestion. That prevents overeating. I'll teach you more about what that actually is. It's often called mindful or intuitive eating, but really what it is, it's getting centered, breathing, calm, eating in a calm, centered, appreciative state. And I had a client that I was desperate. He had celiac disease and he was wasting away to nothing. And I read a book on mindful eating. I said, hey, maybe it'll help a little. And it completely transformed everything. He was a committed achiever and he just pushed so much. And when you're in that state of adrenaline, of stress, of fear, blood flow is shunted away from the digestive tract. So now you don't digest and absorb and assimilate nutrients as well. So that's why that's so important. But the devoted and humble student self-mastery thinks this way. They're excited. They have a state of reverence for their bodies and for the food. The food isn't just something so we feel better. We don't soothe our emotions with it, where a lot of people do. That's why we overeat. That's why we have problems with our weight. No, the devoted and humble student of self-mastery looks at food as medicine, food as a fuel source, so that you can live life in a way that makes you proud and serves the greater good. So remember, there's dabblers, there are committed achievers, and there's devoted, humble student of self-mastery. You decide how you want to show up. But the dabbler is their feelings control them. So if they feel a certain way, then they eat a certain way. If they feel another way, they eat a different way, right? The committed achiever will just say, tell me what to eat, and they'll hammer it. But if they're in a state of stress, they're very likely going to overeat, and they're going to have poor digestion and absorption and assimilation. The devoted and humble student self-mastery isn't focused on doing like the committed achiever. It's focused on first being who they need to be. They summon the lion, the lioness, some sort of love-based emotional state. Maybe it's determination, maybe it's appreciation, maybe it's love or joy or passion or courage. Any positive emotion generates energy. So I first want you to come in with that mindset, because this is something you got to do the rest of your life. You are not in a hurry, my friend. You may feel like you're in a hurry, and if you feel like you're in a hurry, which of those 3 archetypes are you living out? That's the committed achiever. I still fall back in these things sometimes, but when we have an awareness of it, we can shift gears. And that's how nutrition works. Nutrition, there's a time where you can go full force and track everything and train hard, and life is great, you're on point. But there's times also, like during the holidays, where tracking and measuring all your food is really tough. And so we need to know how to adjust gears. And so that's what this blueprint is. This is the fire fuel nutrition system, and you can use your hand to measure your portion sizes, because what you need is consistency. Whenever one day you eat 2,000 calories, one day you eat 500, another day you eat 5,000, your body is all over the place. I won't go into the details of the physiology and the biochemistry, but what it is the body doesn't feel safe, and you're not going to make progress. So you need this you want to eat about the same amount of food each day, hit your protein, and your carbs and fat are less important. But I'll teach you about those in phase 2 and how to use your genetic test results to make it even better for you, where you feel like it's less effort. But right now we need a rhythm. So that's what we're doing. We're getting this rhythm, this routine, and we're using the fire fuel nutrition system. And it is highly, highly effective. Actually, maybe I'll post some before and after pictures this week of people that used it primarily. It's like and so just to give you some certainty. All right. So keep that in mind. Now, there's one other thing I want to talk about, and that's why, I put this in the PDF, so you'll see this saying like, hey, go to the audio to hear this. Why every diet only works for 2 to 3 weeks. The human body is incredible. It adapts to any stress you place upon it. Ideally, the stress gradually increases. It's not too dramatic. That's what most people do in January, right? They're sitting around on a couch, and then they go crazy, and they start doing full-blown workouts, and they don't need that much. It's way too much. And so every diet works at first because of the first law of thermodynamics. And it stops because of something called metabolic adaptation. So first law of thermodynamics and metabolic adaptation. Now keep this in mind. Let's say you're not really watching what you're eating, you're snacking. Snacking will get you, man. A handful of almonds is like 200 calories. And then they don't even fill you up most of the time, right? So people eat a lot more than they realize. And that's why we track food, or we measure our portions with our hand. But the first law of thermodynamics states this: energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change shape or form. So you can't destroy anything. Like if you light something on fire and it burns up, it turns into a gas or it turns into ash, right? I wasn't trying to rhyme, that just did. So when you have calories, that's how we measure energy in food. That has to go somewhere. So if you need 2,000 calories just to maintain your body to stay alive, and so you're burning 2,000 calories, you take in 2,000 calories, you stay the same. There's not really a change in muscle or fat or water generally. So there's not much is going on there. That probably never happens, because every day you're either gaining a little fat or losing a little fat, gaining a little muscle or losing a little muscle. And your water weight's a thing that changes quickly and dramatically. So if someone gains 8 pounds from morning to night, well, it's the food that's in their digestive tract, and it is water weight. So if you travel, like if you fly for a prolonged period of time, you retain water. You probably noticed that. If you wear rings, or sometimes your socks, like if you have socks on, it makes an indentation and it stays for a long period of time. These things, your body weight, your body water changes dramatically. So I bring that up because of the first law of thermodynamics. We want to make sure we're measuring fat and muscle So there's a system for that, which is in the PDF. But back to this. So if you eat more food, say you take in 3,000 calories, but you only needed 2,000, what happens? Well, if you lifted weights, some of it will turn into muscle, which is pretty cool. If you or resistance train, like your Monday, Wednesday, Friday train sessions, that will actually help you build muscle if you have extra food. Now, but the rest that you don't use is going to be stored as fat. And most people don't do resistance training, and so they store that as fat. And then what really matters here? Well, people hear this is like, well, then I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to only eat 1,000 calories. And then so, but if you only need 2,000, 1,000 calories might be really low. You may be starving. Now, if you go too low on your calories, you eat too little food, you'll start to lose muscle at some point, usually within 3 days. Now, if you do resistance training, there's ways around that, but it's really hard to live that way, and you aren't going to be super productive or your best self probably in other areas of your life. And so the point is this: you want a slight deficit in calories to burn fat, and you want a slight surplus of calories to build muscle. So whatever your goal is. Now, most of you want to burn fat, but it's just as important to build muscle, because muscle is metabolism. Muscle, the more muscle you have, the more food you can eat without gaining weight. It's pretty cool. But muscle is the location in the body where fat is burned. It's also where we make energy, ATP. So the more muscle you have, the greater your ability to burn fat, the more food you can eat, and the more energy you have. And in terms of longevity, muscle and strength is far more important than your body fat percentage. So the amount of fat you have. So you don't want to ever be frail. You want to be strong and you want to have muscle. Super important. I'm just thinking about my mom and how she lost muscle, and so that's why it popped up. That wasn't part of the plan though. So what happens? So let's say you're eating 1,500 calories and you burn off 2,000. You have 500 calories a day that burns it off. You're like going into fat stores, but it's not so extreme that you're losing muscle. This is awesome. This is the sweet spot. So you can eat too much or you can eat too little. This is where people fail. What most people do is they just start something and they're eating less. And for every 10 pounds someone loses on a calorie restricted diet, like a low calorie diet, about 6 pounds of it comes from lean body mass, which means they have a greater ability to store fat now. And when they fall off the wagon, because everyone that diets does that, they don't gain back muscle if they're not doing resistance training and get enough protein, right? Now, I'm using a lot of numbers in here. That's the whole point is this: you can eat too much, you can eat too little. And so, but what will happen is metabolic adaptation. Your body will adapt. So that 1,500 calories that was burning, where you were burning fat, let's say you lost a pound of fat the first week. The next week, you still stick to it, might burn 0.5 pound of fat. The next week, you're stuck. That's chilling. What most people do is they go far more extreme. So that happens, they'll get a bigger number the first week, and the next week it's about half, and then it stops. Because the body's protecting itself. It wants to survive. Follow me? Okay, so that's important. So what we have to do is we need to have measurements. We need consistency and measurements. So when you lose, say you stop losing weight, you get stuck. What do we want to measure? Here's the thing you want to measure. Say you're following your nutrition plan. That's the first thing, right? You're being consistent with it. What's next? Well, we want to look at your weight first thing in the morning using the same scale, ideally every day, and take the average of those measurements. So you don't want to go by one day because it could be a water weight change, right? So we want to get at least 3 measurements in the week if we can. And then say, okay, did you gain weight or lose weight? Whatever that is, right? Then we want to figure out, is it muscle or fat? And there's 2 things we want to look at. Tape measure. And so there's a link in the PDF with the United States Army body fat calculator, and you use a tape measure. It's different for men and women, but basically the 3 measurements I would measure on everybody that are important is your hips. You want to contract the muscles for consistency, and use a myo tape, which is, you get on Amazon. It's like $12 or something. And you press the button, it puts the same amount of tension each time, because you can cheat if you squeeze hard or whatever, right? And so you do that over the hips over the belly button, the navel, and again, flex your stomach muscles so there's consistency, and then your neck. Those 3 measurements are going to tell us, hey, are you losing fat or gaining muscle? What's changing your body composition? And you can pop those measurements, your height and weight, in that calculator, and it'll estimate your body fat percentage. Now, there's no perfect way to measure body fat. And so what we want to know, is it going up or is it going down? And so there's a reliable indicator. The final thing to measure is your strength from the first week of your program to the second week. Now, this requires you to give your best each time. So if the first week you gave your best, you got through 3 rounds and 1 exercise and 2 reps, you mark that when you submit your results just in your notes, right? And then the next week, you're like, hey, what did I do last Monday? And then you go to diary at the bottom of the home screen, scroll back to the previous week and say, oh, Monday I did 3 rounds, 1 exercise and 2 reps. I'm going to do more than that. I'm going to do at least 3 rounds, 1 exercise and an extra rep, 3 reps. And if you can do that, your body's recovering. That is important. If that's not happening, your body's not recovering. Eventually, you're going to get off track. Your body's going to stop you. And that may lower your immunity. You may catch something. You may start getting symptoms. So we can catch that before it happens, because what we're measuring is your body's ability to recover from stress. All right, that was the fast. This is all in the PDF. But here's the thing, my friend. Come in as the devoted, humble student, self-mastery. Realize it's not a straight line. There's going to be times where you make progress. There's times where you won't make progress. The key is, if you get off track, is to get back on. That's the difference between someone who is successful and living this for life and someone that is always starting and stopping, doing more damage every time they do it because they're losing muscle and gaining fat. But most of all, they're damaging their belief in themselves. They're creating limiting beliefs every time you try something and it doesn't work or you don't stick to it. You start to believe a little less. Now, you are the type of person, we are all the type of people here that understand that we can create limiting beliefs and we can remove and annihilate limiting beliefs and replace them with powerful beliefs. And one single belief can change everything, literally. If you go from a simple belief is like life is war to life is a game, that will change every aspect of your life. Life is about love, or life is about getting everything you can. 2 different worlds. But keep that in mind. This program is a body transformation program, but it is about self-mastery. Self-mastery is the gateway to living greatly. Do not get caught up in being perfect. You are already successful in some area of your life, or otherwise we would not be talking, right? You have what it takes. You already do this stuff in a different area, but now you're going to apply those same skills and capabilities into this area. And you are going to create a body that is lean, strong, energized, that you're proud of, and that doesn't let you down. It's going to last a very long time. And I got your back, my friend. If you have questions, let me know. Hit me up in the chat. But very soon, as you stick through this, something's going to shift. You're going to start enjoying it even more. You're going to start building certainty. And you're going to love this, because if you don't dig it, you won't do it, my friend. So one of the goals in your North Star is to learn to love the process. All right, you know where to find me. Let's do this. Happy holidays.
You tap into the real you, but you have to retrain yourself. The way you retrain yourself is you wake your ass up in the morning and you say, I am here for a reason and a purpose. And it's bigger than my moods. It's bigger than the difficulties of the day. I am here to live like a lion, not the fear of a lamb.